The sun had barely risen when the sound of paddles hitting the water echoed through the small riverside community. It was Goro again, tall, muscular, and admired by every villager. He was the kind of man who made everyone smile when he walked by. His laughter carried peace, his generosity fed the poor, and his strength was a story mothers told their sons. But behind the charm and respect lay a heavy shadow. Goro had no child. For years, his wife Mary stood beside him. Beautiful, but with a tongue sharper than a fisherman's hook. She complained about everything, the size of fish he caught, the time he returned, even the way he greeted people. Still, Goro never raised his voice at her. He loved peace more than pride. Yet the whispers of the villagers grew louder each passing year. Maybe Goro's wife is cursed. Maybe she's the reason he has no child. Those words stung like a knife to his chest. One evening, sitting by the riverside after a long day of work, Goro sighed deeply. His friend David sat beside him, chewing on a piece of sugarcane. "Goro," David said softly, "you've done everything for that woman. Maybe it's time you think about another wife. Someone who might give you the joy you deserve." Goro frowned. The thought of another woman had crossed his mind countless times, but his loyalty always held him back. "Mary won't agree," he replied. "She can barely stand me bringing home fish, how will she stand another wife?" But destiny was waiting with a cruel smile. That night, Goro finally gathered courage and spoke to Mary. To his greatest surprise, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply smiled, a cold, strange smile, and said, "If another woman can bring you peace, then so be it." Goro couldn't believe it. For the first time in years, he felt light. Days later, he married Shua, a young, respectful woman whose beauty made even the sun jealous. Shua treated Mary with kindness, calling her sister and sharing chores. The village rejoiced. Goro's home finally knew laughter again. 2 months later, the miracle happened. Shua became pregnant. Goro wept tears of joy that day. He built a small cradle with his own hands, painted it blue, and whispered prayers of gratitude every night. When the time came, Shua delivered 2 healthy twins, a boy and a girl. The entire village danced. Goro slaughtered his biggest fish and threw a feast by the river. Even Mary smiled, or so it seemed. But beneath that smile was fire. Her heart burned with something darker than jealousy. Every cry from the baby stabbed her chest like a blade. Every thank you to Shua felt like poison. Then, one evening, as the sun set in a red blaze, Mary walked silently into Shua's room. Shua sat there, weak but glowing, nursing the twins. The air felt heavy, strange. Mary stood at the door, eyes blank, voice low. "Shua," she whispered. "Take your children, and go throw them into the river." Shua blinked. "What?" But Mary's words came again, stronger, colder, and Shua's body began to tremble. Her eyes lost focus. Her lips quivered. She stood, holding her babies close, and walked out, slowly, silently, as if trapped in a dream. Through the narrow path, she reached the old bridge. The moon was rising. The river roared beneath. And with no hesitation, she dropped both twins into the water. Moments later, she returned home, soaked, pale, and speechless. Goro came home soon after, his hands full of smoked fish. "Where are my children?" he asked, smiling. No one answered. Shua looked lost, confused. Then Mary's voice broke the silence, calm, deadly. "Someone saw her, at the river. With the babies. I'm afraid she threw them in." Goro's world shattered. Rage blinded him. Without thinking, he struck Shua, once, twice, again, until she fell to the floor, crying and bleeding, unable to defend herself. Neighbors rushed in. Some confirmed Mary's claim. "Yes, we saw her going toward the river," one said. "She was holding the babies," another added. That night, Shua was thrown out of the house, broken, shivering, and accused of killing her own children. She had no memory of what happened, no explanation, only guilt that ate her alive. But unknown to everyone, the real evil still lived under Goro's roof, smiling in the dark. If you're still watching, you're not ready for what happens next. Please like and subscribe because what Mary did after that night will leave you speechless. The night Shua was cast out, the sky wept. Rain poured heavily, washing away her tears but not her pain. She wandered barefoot through the muddy path, her clothes soaked, her heart shattered. Every drop that hit her face reminded her of the cries of her babies, cries she could no longer hear. She didn't know why she had done it. She didn't even remember walking to the river. The last thing she recalled was Mary standing before her, whispering something she couldn't understand, and then darkness. By dawn, Shua found herself lying beside an abandoned hut outside the village. Cold. Weak. Alone. Her body trembled, her mind screamed, "I am a murderer." But deep inside, something kept telling her, no, something isn't right. Meanwhile, Goro sat by the riverside, staring blankly at the waves that once brought him peace. His friends came and went, offering comfort he couldn't feel. David, his closest friend, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Brother, you have to let her go. What she did, it can't be forgiven." But Goro didn't answer. His heart wanted to hate Shua, yet his soul couldn't. There was something about her eyes that night, confusion, fear, not guilt. Still, Mary made sure everyone remembered the story her way. Shua was jealous, she told the villagers. She couldn't handle the pressure of motherhood. Poor Goro, after all these years, only to be cursed with a woman like that. And they believed her. After all, Mary had always been his first wife, respected, admired, trusted. Days turned to weeks. Goro's house grew quieter, darker. He rarely spoke, rarely ate. Sometimes, late at night, he thought he heard baby cries coming from the river. He would rush out, only to find silence and shadows. But guilt is a strange thing. It can't be buried. One night, Mary woke up screaming. Sweat drenched her body, her heart racing. She had seen the twins, wet, shivering, staring at her from the foot of her bed. She blinked, and they were gone. She told herself it was just a nightmare. But the next night, it happened again. And again. Her health began to fail. She couldn't sleep. Her eyes became hollow, her skin pale. Goro noticed but thought it was grief. "You've done enough, Mary," he said softly. "You've been strong for me. Rest." But she couldn't rest. Because the truth, the dark, hidden truth, was eating her from the inside. One afternoon, Mary went to the riverbank, hoping to clear her mind. She stood at the same spot where Shua had thrown the twins. The river flowed calmly, almost peacefully. But when she looked down, her reflection seemed wrong. It smiled when she didn't. Its lips moved, whispering words she couldn't hear. Mary stumbled back, terrified. That night, she couldn't eat. Her hands trembled. For the first time, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, guilt. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of the village, Shua had found shelter with an old woman named Grace, who gave her food and listened to her story. Grace watched her closely and said one thing that froze her heart. "Child, you didn't kill them." Shua gasped. What do you mean?" Grace looked away. Sometimes, the river doesn't take what it doesn't want. Those words echoed in Shua's mind long after Grace walked away. She didn't understand them, but they gave her a small, fragile hope. And hope, even in the darkest heart, is dangerous. Mary's nights had become endless battles between sleep and terror. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the twins, wet, trembling, whispering her name. They crawled toward her, their tiny hands cold as death, their eyes glimmering with something that wasn't hate, but pain. She would wake up screaming, her body soaked in sweat, heart pounding like a drum. But one night, it became worse. Much worse. That night, Goro was awakened by the sound of water splashing, not from the river, but from their bedroom floor. He turned on his lantern and froze. Mary was sitting upright on the bed, trembling, her clothes soaked. She had wet herself, again. At first, Goro thought it was from fear. But as days passed, it continued. She would urinate without knowing. Sometimes in her sleep, sometimes while talking, even in public. The proud, elegant first wife became the shame of the community. Her sickness spread faster than rumors. Villagers whispered behind her back, calling it a curse. But deep down, Mary knew the truth, it wasn't a sickness. It was punishment. Goro, desperate to save his wife, began taking her to every native doctor in the city. From one end of the land to another, he sought answers. But every healer said the same thing. Her body carries no disease. Her spirit carries a secret. Until her mouth frees it, her body will not. Each time they said that, Mary's face turned pale. She avoided Goro's eyes. She wanted to confess, she wanted to, but fear held her throat like a rope. One night, the last doctor they visited, an old man with a long scar across his cheek, looked straight into Mary's eyes and said quietly, "The river is not done with you." Mary gasped. Goro looked confused. "What does that mean?" he asked. But the old man simply turned away. "Ask your wife," he said, "for only she knows the reason she's dying." Goro's heart began to twist with suspicion, yet he couldn't bring himself to believe his beloved Mary could hide such a thing. While all this happened, far from the village, Shua's mind was restless. Grace's words, "The river doesn't take what it doesn't want," replayed over and over in her head like a haunting melody. That evening, she gathered courage and asked, "Mama Grace, what did you mean when you said that?" Grace sighed deeply, staring at the fading sunset. "Child, there are rivers that swallow, and there are rivers that protect. The one in your village has never accepted innocent blood. If those children were pure, that river did not keep them." Shua's heart pounded. "Are you saying they are alive?" Grace didn't answer. Instead, she reached for a small leather bag and handed it to Shua. "Tonight, we will go to that river. We will take its sand. If the sand runs warm in your hand, they live. If it runs cold, they rest beneath it." That night, the moon was shy behind thick clouds. The village slept, but Shua and Grace walked silently through the narrow paths, their feet bare, their hearts heavy. The crickets sang softly in the dark. When they reached the riverbank, Shua froze. Memories flooded back, the cries of her babies, the splash, the silence. Her knees went weak. Grace held her hand. "Courage, my child. The truth sleeps here." They both knelt beside the water. Grace whispered a short prayer, then dipped her hand into the wet sand, scooping it into Shua's palm. The moment the sand touched her skin, Shua gasped, it was warm. Her eyes widened. Her breath trembled. She dropped the sand, but Grace caught her wrist. "Don't fear. The river rejected them. They are not dead. Tears streamed down Shua's face. Then where are they, Mama? Where did they go? Before Grace could answer, the water rippled violently, as if something deep beneath it moved. The wind grew stronger, and the air turned cold. Grace stood, eyes wide. We must leave, now, she said, grabbing Shua's hand as they returned home. The sun had not yet risen, but Goro's heart was already heavy with a storm he could no longer control. For weeks, he had tried to silence the doubts in his mind, but now, every sign pointed to something deeper, darker. His wife Mary's strange sickness. Shua's sudden disappearance, the cries from the river at night, everything connected like a curse woven into his destiny. That morning, Goro sat on the edge of his bed, sharpening his machete slowly. The metallic sound filled the air, steady and cold. Mary, lying weak on the mat, watched silently. Her eyes were hollow, her lips dry. Mary, Goro said, his voice trembling with rage, I have been patient. I have suffered. But today, you will speak. Either your mouth tells me the truth, or this machete will. Mary didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She only smiled weakly and whispered. Kill me, Goro. I deserve it. I would rather die than live in this shame. But her words made his heart twist. He slammed the machete on the floor, shaking. No. You will not die easy. You will tell me everything, and if you refuse, I'll take you to the river myself and leave you there. At the mention of the river, Mary froze. Her breathing quickened. She began to tremble uncontrollably. Tears rolled down her face as she whispered, No, not the river. Please, not there. Goro stood over her. Then speak. She broke. The confession poured out like poison from her heart. She told him how jealousy consumed her. How the night Shue gave birth, she had entered her room, whispered words of hate, and made her throw her babies into the river. She admitted she lied to everyone, that Shua was innocent, that she alone was the evil behind all the pain. Goro fell to his knees, his heart breaking apart. Tears filled his eyes. You did this? You destroyed everything I had. Mary sobbed. The river won't forgive me. The twins, they come every night. I can't sleep. I can't breathe. Please, take me there. Let the river end me. Word spread quickly through the community. When the village elders heard her confession, they summoned the native doctor for guidance. The old man listened quietly, then said in a low, grave tone, Take her to the river. Only there can her punishment be complete. And so, that evening, the entire village gathered. Mary was weak, carried on a small wooden stool, her eyes red from endless tears. Goro followed behind, machete in hand, not to harm her, but to make sure she didn't escape the truth. Meanwhile, far from the village, Shua and Grace walked in the same direction, carrying the small god of sand they had taken from the river. They had just left another native doctor who told them, Return tomorrow evening with the sand. The river will reveal what it holds. Neither of them knew that the same river would soon reunite every piece of the broken puzzle. As the sun sank behind the hills, both groups, Goro and the villagers from one side, Shua and Grace from the other, reached the riverbank at the same moment. The wind blew fiercely, and the water churned as if angry. Goro froze when his eyes met Shua's. Time stopped. Shua gasped, tears flooding her eyes. Memories flashed back, Mary's eyes that night, her voice, the spell, the walk to the bridge, the splash. It was her, Shua whispered, pointing at Mary. She made me do it. Mary fell to her knees, crying bitterly. Yes. I did it. I destroyed everything. The river refused to take my shame, and now it's eating me alive. The villagers murmured in shock. Some covered their mouths, others wept. Just then, the wind stopped. The river became still, silent as a grave. Everyone watched in awe. Then it happened. The water began to ripple again, slowly at first, then stronger, and out of it floated a small wooden cradle, the same one Goro had built with his hands months ago. Inside it were the twins, alive, breathing, wrapped in dry cloth. The crowd gasped. Goro dropped to his knees, his voice breaking. "My children." Shua ran forward, her trembling hands holding the cradle. Tears of joy streamed down her face. Grace knelt beside her, whispering prayers of gratitude. The villagers began to sing and dance, their voices echoing across the riverbank. But Mary could not stand. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She tried to crawl toward the water, crying, "Forgive me. Please, river, forgive me." Suddenly, the river roared, a deep, angry sound that shook the ground. Mary screamed as a violent wave rose and splashed over her. When it settled, she lay lifeless by the bank. Goro rushed to her side, but it was too late. The river had made its judgment. The elders ordered her body to be taken away. But when they tried to bury her near the water, the waves rose again, pushing her corpse toward the bushes. The river had rejected her completely. Her body was finally thrown into the thick forest behind the village, unwanted, forgotten, cursed. That night, the community returned home with Shua, Goro, and their twins. Drums sounded across the land. People danced under the moon, celebrating the miracle the river had given back. And as Goro held his family close, tears of joy streaming down his face, he whispered, "The river may take what we don't deserve, but it always returns what belongs to love. Jealousy destroys faster than poverty. A heart filled with envy can poison even the purest soul. In every home, let peace reign, for the river of life gives only to those whose hearts are clean."